Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this extraordinary council meeting, the local plan. Thank you to whoever's phone went off. Please can I remind you to switch your mobile phones off or have them on silent. And please do be discreet if you're using mobile or laptop devices. Please can I ask that again you show respect to anyone who is speaking, be it a member, a council officer, and we also have 6 deputations this evening. Can I, on behalf of the council, give our most grateful thanks to the amazing emergency services who are tackling the fire on Marsden Moor. We know that they're doing a great job, and we hope that everyone is safe. And can I remind you that we will be having a short break of only 15 minutes, and that will be after the deputations, and it will only be for 15 minutes. Any announcements by the Chief Executive? Oh, thank you. Item number 2, apologies. Are there any apologies for absence this evening? Councillor Sokil, please.
Madam Mayor, I got an apology from Councillor Paul Kane and Councillor Musrat Khan. They are both in hospital, yeah. And Councillor Edgar Holroyd. No, well. Yeah? Don't you know? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokil. Councillor Patrick, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam. We have apologies from Councillor McGuinn.
Thank you. Any more apologies?
Councillor Burke is in the building, and we have a late arrival from Councillor Eastwood. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Allison, please. Thank you. Item number 3. Declarations of interest. Members who are in interest should disclose their interests now. Are there any interests to declare? Councillor Scott, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's item 4. It's another interest. It's because I live next to the site on Chitsworth.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Bellamy, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm a trustee on Home Valley Land Charity and a member of Home Valley Parish Council.
Thank you, Councillor Bellamy. Councillor Sokil, please.
Yeah, it's declare interest because I'm a director of Board of Trustee of Carl, yeah, Kirklees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokil. Can I remind any members who have declared an interest to complete the form and submit to the clerk by the end of the meeting? Oh, Councillor D. Firth, please.
Home Valley Land Charity and Home Valley Parish Council.
Thank you, Councillor Firth. Any more? No, I'll just have...
Madam Mayor, I want to let the meeting know that I've granted 3 dispensations to members who are also on K&H. So that's Councillor Smage, Councillor Mather and Councillor Pattison. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4, Kirklees Local Plan. Members, please note that a paper has been tabled which sets out a summary of issues for you to consider at today's meeting. In terms of the procedure for the meeting, I move that 1. In accordance with Council Procedure Rule 47, Council Procedure Rules relating to deputations and rules of debate be suspended in order to allow public representations to be made. Contributions from members of the public shall be limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. And 2, that all council procedure rules be reinstated at the conclusion of public representations. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Please can we all vote on that, please? Oh. By show of hands. Thank you. I will now invite Richard Hollinson to provide a presentation overview of the local plan, following which we will receive several public representations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this presentation is to set out the main stages of preparing the local plan, to summarise the key messages from the Inspector's report after the Secretary of State's examination into the plan, and to explain the recommendations to Council set out in the Officer's report and the next steps which might follow. Work to replace the current Unitary Development Plan has been taking place for many years, but for the local plan specifically, the adoption stage is the result of 5 years' work which has involved significant public participation and evidence gathering. Members may recall the publication draft local plan was approved for consultation and submission in October 2016. Public consultation on the soundness of that draft commenced late 2016, and the plan was submitted to the Secretary of State in April 2017 after full consideration of the soundness comments. The Secretary of State appointed 2 planning inspectors, Katie Child and Elizabeth Hill, to carry out an examination in public between May 2017 to January 2019. This process included the exchange of further written evidence, significant public participation, and a number of public hearing sessions held over 4 distinct stages. As a result of this process, the inspectors asked the Council to prepare a series of modifications which were consulted on in late summer 2018. A flowchart showing the plan-making process is set out in Appendix 8 of the Council report, and the Council has now reached the adoption stage. The main conclusion of the Inspector's report is that the plan is sound, subject to modifications, and can now be adopted. Main modifications concern the soundness of the plan. The Secretary of State requires the Council to make these modifications if the plan is to be adopted. Additional modifications are minor changes, such as corrections and clarifications. They are not needed to make the plan sound, but are recommended so that the plan makes sense to users of the local plan. All the main and additional modifications have been shared and agreed with the inspectors and are attached to the Council report in Appendices 1, 2 and 3. It is important to note that following the public consultation of the modifications, all the comments received on them were provided in full to the inspectors. The inspectors could have carried out further hearings on key issues. However, after full consideration, the inspectors have determined that the modifications meet the criteria for soundness in the National Planning Policy Framework. The local plan will provide a balanced, sustainable framework for an ambitious but realistic housing and job growth programme up to 2031. The adoption of the plan will provide the certainty needed to allow the Council, its partners and the community to shape the future of our towns and villages, boost economic growth, help create healthier communities, maximise scope to attract business investment and help protect urban green spaces. Whilst officers fully recognise that financial considerations are not the main reason for preparing the local plan, it should be recognised that evidence prepared by independent consultants suggests that the adoption of the local plan will bring forward millions of pounds of private and public sector investment over the life of the plan. The Inspector's report confirms that the plan has been prepared in accordance with its legal tests. These are clearly set out in the Inspector's report in their assessment of legal compliance. These include public consultation carried out in accordance with regulations, due regard to the public sector equality duty, sustainability and environmental checks have been met, and the plan-making process has complied with the duty to cooperate, including confirmation that the Council has demonstrated constructive and ongoing engagement with adjoining local authorities and other organisations on strategic matters. The Inspector's report confirms that the local plan strategy, which focuses on place shaping and recognising the diversity of the district, is justified. The distribution of growth is also justified, with a main focus on Huddersfield and Dewsbury areas. This strategy and the place shaping policies in the local plan can contribute significantly to the Council's ambitions for place-based working. There is also recognition that the key strategic component of the local plan to protect important urban green spaces is sustainable and that the approach to greenbelt release is justified. As can be seen on this slide, which shows urban green spaces and the green belt as it would be if the local plan is adopted, the plan has sought to retain the general extent of the green belt boundary and also protect significant areas of urban green space within the more densely built up areas of the district. The inspectors have confirmed that the plan's housing requirement for 31,140 new dwellings between 2013 and 2031 is robust and credible. The local plan housing requirement is based on 2014 household projections that were issued by the government in 2016. This issue is dealt with directly in the inspector's report, which confirms this approach is correct and sound. The Council's use of the 2014 base figures is also consistent with national policy and guidance published by the government. Whilst a further set of household projections were published in 2016, government policy and guidance states that these figures do not provide an appropriate basis for identifying housing need. To do so would make the plan unsound. As can be seen on this slide, the overall housing supply in the plan is made up of land with planning permission, homes already built since 2013, a significant allowance for new windfall development within urban areas, and new housing allocations. In order to establish a realistic 5-year supply of housing, modifications have been made to the indicative housing phasing information for some of the housing allocations. The Inspector concludes this is now realistic and achievable. In relation to meeting housing needs, the inspectors have concluded that the plan's policy for 20% of new homes to be affordable is sound, although modifications are needed to broaden the definition of affordable housing in the local plan to accord with the government's latest definition. The need for traveller and travelling show persons accommodation is established and site allocations are justified, and the local plan's policy framework provides flexibility to meet housing needs for older people, specialist accommodation and custom and self-build. The plan's approach to employment land requirements and the use of land currently in the green belt is robust and justified. Policies in the plan support existing employment areas, promotion of skills and opportunities, and support the role of the rural economy. The plan contains an aspiration for about 23,000 jobs up to 2031, which remains unchanged from the publication draft, but modifications have been required to delete the proposed allocation at Clayton West and significantly reduce the size of the allocation at Cooper Bridge. This leads to a shared focus between promoting larger new allocations remaining in the plan and supporting expansion of small and medium-sized business in accordance with the Kirklees economic strategy. Evidence supporting the plan, including transport modelling and education needs assessment, have been found to be robust, credible and proportionate. New policies in the local plan require essential infrastructure to be sought and development to be phased appropriately. The draft local plan, its potential allocations and the phasing data of new development is already informing the Council's next stage investment and regeneration programmes, and early infrastructure planning on the back of the duty to cooperate process include GP surgery planning with clinical commissioning groups, transport infrastructure and investment decision making at the West Yorkshire Combined Authority, the Council's school place planning and utility provision, including the rollout of digital infrastructure. The Inspector's report provides a reasoned justification for the site allocations made in the local plan, together with their proposed modifications following their detailed scrutiny and assessment. It is not possible within the time constraints of this presentation to go through them all, but the key messages are: the plan contains a range of housing, employment and mixed-use allocations, which include small, medium and large sites. The Inspectors also confirmed that the site selection process was robust and wide-ranging. Strategic sites are justified, bringing significant advantages for master planning and planned infrastructure delivery. And site allocation modifications relate primarily to heritage issues, site constraints, planning decisions made during the plan's preparation, and the importance of urban green space. The Inspectors have confirmed that the plan needs to contain safeguarded land. That's land identified so that the Greenbelt boundary does not need to be redrawn for some time. This type of allocation provides flexibility to the plan and is a requirement of national policy in cases like Kirklees, where the Greenbelt boundary is tightly drawn around the urban areas. Modifications on safeguarded land primarily relate to the definition of this type of land, where landlocked safeguarded land in the UDP, known as POL, or Provisional Open Land, does not meet the definition and should be left unallocated. The Inspectors confirmed that the Greenbelt boundary changes are justified. It should be noted the Greenbelt boundary has not been reviewed in some parts of the district since the 1980s, almost 40 years, and taken together with significant population and economic growth and the justified need for land for new homes and jobs, the Inspectors have confirmed exceptional circumstances exist to release land from the Greenbelt. The Inspectors have confirmed that the Council's approach to protecting urban green spaces is robust and credible. It supports public health strategies and protects open spaces in denser urban areas. Modifications relating to urban green space primarily reflect planning permissions which were granted during the plan's preparation and the conversion of a small number of proposed sites to urban green spaces. The plan contains a wide-ranging policy framework, including many policies which are not in the current development plan and the Council has not had before. Policies regarding master planning, design, sustainable travel, the protection of the natural and historic environment will provide an up-to-date starting point for planning decision-making, the creation of quality places, addressing mitigation measures for new development, and generally providing a stronger policy framework from the current unitary development plan. The Planning Service is already looking to strengthen our ambition for quality places further, and we have already set out in our local development scheme supplementary planning documents to improve the quality of our places. There is a national planning policy requirement to plan for a steady and adequate supply of minerals, and the Inspector's report confirms the approach is sound, with the amount of minerals planned for justified. Mineral site allocations were discussed at length during the examination in public, and the justification for specific mineral site locations are detailed in the Inspector's report. The plan contains a suite of minerals policies which require assessment of amenity and environmental issues at the time of planning applications, and these policies require site restoration and aftercare. National planning policy also requires the local plan to set out an approach for sustainable waste management, which can sit alongside separate waste management strategies and programmes. The Inspectors conclude that the plan's waste policies are considered to be compliant with the government's waste hierarchy, aiming to prevent, reduce and reuse ahead of disposal. The plan sets out a range of waste management site locations aimed at addressing waste management at each level of the waste hierarchy. Given the Inspector's conclusions, officers have presented a number of recommendations to Council for consideration. Recommendation 1 asks members to note the content of the Inspector's report and the main modifications, as the plan can only be adopted with these in place. Recommendation 2 asks members to adopt the local plan with the presented main and additional modifications, and in doing so replace the UDP as the statutory development plan for Kirklees. Members are advised that there has been no intervention by the Secretary of State since the Inspector's report was made available, and that if members do not adopt the plan, then the process must start again at an appropriate point, as there is a statutory duty to prepare a development plan. Members are also advised that the Housing and Planning Act 2016 grants intervention powers to the Secretary of State to direct a local authority to prepare a development plan, particularly in areas of high housing pressure and where least progress is being made in plan preparation. Subject to members adopting the plan, recommendations 3 and 4 seek delegated powers to deal with updating maps and make final amendments regarding factual changes, grammar and formatting. I would like to draw members' attention to Section 23 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004, which confirms that the Council can only adopt the local plan if the main modifications put forward by the inspectors are accepted. Therefore, amendments to the plan, which would constitute a main modification, cannot be made during this meeting. Such decisions would mean the non-adoption of the local plan and relevant matters being considered through a new examination in public. Section 23 also allows for additional modifications to be made to the plan, where they do not materially affect the local plan when taken together with the main modifications. The proposed additional modifications set out in the appendices to the Council report have been endorsed by the planning inspectors and are deemed to be in accordance with the Act. Suggestions for amendments to, deletions of, or new additional modifications may be considered and can be delegated to officers in accordance with recommendation 4, where they relate exclusively to factual updates, grammatical and formatting corrections. In accordance with Section 23, however, such changes cannot amount to the same effect as a main modification or materially affect the local plan. If members determine to adopt the local plan, officers will carry out the actions set out in recommendations 3, 4 and 5. Section 113 of the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act 2004 provides for a 6-week period for legal challenge post-adoption of the local plan, with a 6-week period beginning the first day after adoption. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The presentation is now finished.
Thank you very much, Richard. Thank you. So I'm now going to invite the public representations. Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself and make your representation, and you have 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I am Graham Maxwell, the Secretary of Bolton, a local action group set up by the people of Birds Edge and surrounding area to oppose the inclusion of the proposed new quarry site ME 1965A in the local plan. We sent letters to you last week outlining issues with this site, together with a map which shows just how close this quarry comes to people's homes, and there are about 45 of them in the immediate vicinity. The site covers 24.4 hectares of unspoiled open farmland in the Pennine foothills in the heart of the green belt. The land is divided into numerous fields by ancient dry stone walls. The area has remained most unchanged for hundreds of years. It is a historic landscape. It's a large area of land between Cumberworth Lane, Derndyke Road, which forms part of the Pennine Trail, recognised for safe routes passing through some of the most stunning scenery, up to Rusby Wood, which houses a reservoir that provides drinking water for up to 50,000 people, and down to Parkhead and Birds Edge Village. The site is adjacent to a number of wildlife habitat network sites and has 2 rivers running through it, the River Dern and Park Dyke. It has many constraints. There's been overwhelming community, political, business and environmental opposition to this site. In 2015, the proposal received over 200 comments opposing the inclusion of the site in the LDP. And in 2016, there were a further 330 comments opposing the site. In all, over 420 separate objectors. The increase in objections from 2015 to 2016 was the highest for any site in the plan. Amongst those objecting were Paula Sheriff MP, the only site in the plan she objected to, 7 council members, including a cabinet member, more council members than for any other site. Local businesses, including large employers at Hinchcliffe and Son, community groups such as CPRE and Yudvet, and wildlife groups such as the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, the Upper Dearne Woodlands Trust and the Don Catchment Rivers Trust. All are very concerned about the dewatering and pollution effects this proposal could have on the River Dearne and Park Dyke. Why then, given the strength of opposition and no support whatsoever for this site, was it not removed from the plan before it went to the inspector? Why in early 2017 was it not brought back to you so that you could have then made it clear that we do not want this site in our plan? This would have seemed like a logical step. Together with two of your councillor colleagues, we have contributed to the 100+ comments made about this site in the main modifications. The combined modification comments opposing site ME 1965A in the plan were the most for any site in the plan. All our comments boil down to one thing: remove this site from the plan. So why are we not being listened to? Why is the site still in the plan? We're also amazed that the size of the site remains at 24.4 hectares, particularly given the expert advice that Kirklees has received from specialist mineral consultants Urban Vision. Urban Vision highlighted the need for safety buffer zones from the River Dearne and houses. In the site sustainability appraisal, it was recognised that a substantial amount of the site would not be quarried because of the proximity of so many houses. Urban Vision suggested a 250-metre buffer from the River Dearne was required to mitigate harm and protect the river from the discharge of pollutants, and in other reports recommended for similar reasons a 250 to 500-metre safety buffer from houses. If these safety zones are applied, then the potential developable area for the site is a fraction of the 24 hectares. So why has this not happened? Why has expensive expert advice been ignored? Well, when I reflect on this, I'm drawn to the words said to us by a member of the Kirklees team at the inspector's hearing. This site is going in the plan no matter what. What did they mean? It certainly made us feel like we'd wasted our time. And it didn't matter what we said, it seemed that it didn't matter what you said, it didn't matter what anybody said. It was going in the plan no matter how many constraints there were. I think, or I hope, what was meant was because there was a willing landowner and a developer, it was going in the plan. But this plan does not belong to landowners, developers or planners. It is not their plan. It is our plan. It should reflect what we all want for Kirklees, and in some instances state what we don't want. And we don't want site ME 1965A. There are many reasons why this site should be removed from the plan, and it's a real pity you were not given the opportunity earlier to do this. So now we've told you have to accept this plan or have no plan. Does that remind you of anything? Well, in this case, the backstop must be changed. Please listen to the public, your colleagues, local businesses and environmental groups and remove site ME 1965 from the plan. No matter what, it is not wanted nor is it needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we have our next representation, please? Thank you. Please can you introduce yourself and make your representation, and you have a maximum of 5 minutes. Thank you.
Yes. Good evening. I'm JC Bedford. I'm a resident of Birds Edge and I'm objecting to the ME 1965A on behalf of myself, my husband and my 94-year-old mother who lives next door to me. My house is on Parkhead Lane. The view from my sitting room, kitchen, garden is straight up, and I mean up, into a potential quarry site, into the teeth of it, if ME 1965A is included in this plan. The prevailing wind will blow straight from the site into the 21 houses along Parkhead Lane, bringing with it dust and noise, not to mention vibrations from machinery which travel through the ground and into the very fabric of our dwellings and can't be attenuated by such measures as double glazing. I'm a writer. My husband is a musician. We both work from home. My mother is virtually housebound. We would all have to live with a quarry on this site 24/7. ME 1965A has two watercourses, the River Dearne and Park Dyke. The Dearne passes through the Upper Dearne Woodlands, the Dearne Valley, the Yorkshire Sculpture Park on its way to join the River Don. Both Park Dyke and the Dearne feed into mill dams that are used by local manufacturer Hinchcliffe and Sons who have mills in both Birdsedge and Denbydale. Hinchliffe employ about 350 people and depend on that water for manufacturing. They've written to strongly oppose this site. Any pollution in or alteration to these watercourses could have consequences not only for the ecology of the area, but also for local jobs. The area has a network of underground aquifers. In addition to drawing water from the Dearne, Hinchliffe also draw water from licensed wells, which depend on the maintenance of the water table. In May 2018, a hydrological study was carried out for nearby Appleton Quarry, and the report said that Park Dyke and the Dearne are both sourced directly from a layer of grenoside rock. Quarrying will remove this layer. The upper reaches of the Dearne and Park Dyke will be dewatered. In simple terms, that means they're going to dry up. Alterations to the water table could also increase flooding risk in the cellars of a row of houses built in 1800 along Parkhead Lane. The fields comprising site ME 1965A collect surface and underground water which feeds into Park Dyke and the Dearne. There are historic wells in the immediate vicinity of this site, wells that the Environment Agency claim no knowledge of and have therefore not been taken into account in the response to the selection of this site for mineral extraction. These watercourses and this groundwater must be protected, and their protection is in your hands. The site is surrounded by several sites which are part of the Kirklees Wildlife Habitat Network. It is in itself a historic area of unspoilt beauty, whose dry stone walls, themselves a haven for wildlife, date from the Enclosure Awards of 1802. It has a diverse array of flora and fauna. There are protected bat colonies, newts, a frog migration route. It's a haven for wildlife, including 17 species of birds, which are classed as red or amber on the UK conservation list. There are roe deer, brown hares, curlews, game birds, grey herons and birds of prey, as well as small mammals such as voles. Locals have been monitoring and taking pictures of wildlife on this site for several years now. We have the statistics. The upper reaches of the River Dearne contain protected species of brown trout and bullheads. The local plan and the National Planning Policy Framework state how the environment and ecosystems should be protected and, where possible, enhanced. This area already has a vast range of wildlife, and that would be endangered if this development is allowed to progress. And what about the mineral? Why is it so valuable? It's not palladium or chromium, it's sandstone, a mineral mostly used for paving and a mineral for which the district already has a reserve of 1,865 million tonnes. Industry estimates that they sell approximately 47,000 tonnes of sandstone per year, which already gives a sandstone reserve of 40
30
years,
seconds, please.
well beyond the excess of the requirements of the local plan. There's therefore no need for this mineral extraction site in the plan, and absolutely no reasons why humans should lose their residential amenity, wildlife should have its habitat destroyed, and thriving, viable businesses should lose their water supply. Please remove ME 1965A from this plan. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Can we have the next representation, please? One of the speakers is having problems with traffic getting here tonight, so Graham is going to read out the gentleman's speech. Thank you, Graham.
This is Mark Burrell's speech. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councillors. I represent the three families living at Dearne Grange Farm, barn and cottage. We are shown in the plan as being 5 metres or 16 feet away from your proposed quarry. I'm 6 feet tall, so do the maths as to how far that is from our houses. This proposed quarry is a potential monstrosity and total disaster for the residents of Birdsedge, the constant and regular use of our lanes by walkers, joggers, horse riders and cyclists, as well as the number of houses located on its edges. There's a disregard for the National Cycle Route, Transpennine Trail that runs along its western edge, which provides exercise and stress-free recreation time for hundreds of people from across the region and not just locals. What none of the planning team understands, as it was thought by a KMC planning representative who visited along with Paul the Sheriff, that our houses were derelict, and also admitted in the hearing last February by Mr Wakefield that nobody had visited the site. is that the weather, and in particular winds up there, are known to be very strong much of the time. You could be sat in your offices in town and look out to a very calm day. You can go to Morrison's at Waterloo and see the flags and trees virtually static, move on for a quick pint at the Rising Sun Shelley, and be able to sit in the beer garden calling at the Chinese takeaway in Shepley, and you may get a bit of an inkling there's a light breeze. Pop in to see any one of us at Durn Grange, and be careful opening your car door, as it may end up in the fields along with ME 1965A. That's of course if the snow in winter months there wasn't apparent at the Sovereign Crossroads hasn't stopped you getting down Cumberland Lane. Winds are strong and often all year round, not just what you'd expect in the winter months, so think about the danger created especially when land is dry and winds are high. It's not a joke, it's not to be taken lightheartedly, it's reality, and if everyone from planning had spent a reasonable amount of time there, then they would know the winds are very regular and very strong and almost always blow directly towards our houses from the southwest or westerly direction. We have our own microclimate up there, and those lucky enough to live, walk, jog, cycle or ride in the area regularly know it. Those who don't are totally uneducated to daily life in and around Cumberland Lane and Parkhead Lane. They should not be making life-changing or perish the thought life-threatening decisions from behind their desks in town. We already have plenty of dust from the grass fields growing into the house and do not welcome or accept our health being put in serious danger by the high levels of silicone and other dangerous particles that result from quarries. I doubt that you're interested in the advantages of living in such a scenic and wildlife hosting area such as our views across the countryside, the residential and visual amenities that would be lost, nor the personal financial implications should ME 1965A make the plan. But you should be considering all of these and not feeding the shareholders' coffers of a multi-million-pound business. All of these things, I will not accept you putting a single person's health in danger who lives or exercises in the area. We will, in essence, be living with a quarry in at least 207 degrees of the sides of our houses, should the unthinkable happen and ME 1965A is included in the plan. And coupled with that, have 50-ton lorries hurtling past within 2 metres of our gardens and 6 metres of the houses. The lanes around the quarry are regular hotspots for accidents, and there is certainly no room for the number nor size of lorries that are used for quarry operations. Safe access to the proposed site is virtually impossible. There is a reason why a lorry of any size and a car cannot pass each other without slowing down to a standstill on Parkhead and Cumberland Lane. There is a reason why 2 cars cannot pass safely on Durndyke Lane, never mind a 50-ton lorry. There is a reason to consider the number of accidents, 9 since November, that happen along the lanes and main roads around the Sovereign, and why adding hundreds of huge, heavy lorries and other traffic will increase the numbers. There is a reason why gardens are separated by 3-bar fences and not panels. There's a reason why BT come out on a regular basis to change the telephone wires along Cumberland Lane that are stretched due to high winds. There are a number of reasons why ME 1965A should not be in the plan, not least those of health and safety grounds. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And our next public representation, please. Thank you. Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself, and you have a maximum of 5 minutes to give your representation. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Julie Maxwell, a resident of Bird's Edge. I'm here to ask you to reject quarry site ME 1965A. I thought long and hard about whether or not I should bother speaking today, but I do feel I've got something to say, and I do feel if the public will not stand here before you and say what they think, then you will assume we are all happy with this site in the plan. In truth, I cannot believe I'm here today. I think it's unbelievable that a site that had such strength of opposition, along with so many serious constraints and no support, is actually in the plan. Surely the plan is supposed to reflect what we all want for Kirklees. Nobody wants this site, and yet by including it in the plan, it is being broadcast to developers. If you want a quarry, we think you should develop one in our area. So why? Why? Why are we contemplating the risk of a development of a quarry on this site that will last for generations with all the environmental, social and economic risks that have been highlighted? Why? We are told all this can be mitigated against. How? How do you improve something that's existed and evolved for countless generations? How do you mitigate against the destruction of people's lives and well-being? I was just talking to 7 young children who in all innocence asked me, Julie, when this quarry comes, will we be able to play out on our bikes? And will we have to move house? I wasn't cruel. I could have said, yes, you can if you wear a face mask, ear defenders along with your cycle helmets, and no one will want to buy your house. But I told them, while I still had breath in my lungs, I would continue to fight for their right to keep playing and have the peaceful enjoyment of their own home, and the right for every 4 to 10-year-old that will attend the Bird's Edge School to have an education in a safe environment, the rights and the future choices of everyone affected by this quarry. It's a real shame that at this tender age they've been made to feel threatened like this, but be in no doubt, they realise the importance of putting together a well-researched report and working together to oppose those who would take away their basic human rights. In that moment they asked me, how could they help me? Let's be honest about this. Regardless of when a planning application is likely to be made, 1 year, 3 years, 10 years or more, by putting this site on the plan, no matter what, you've allowed planners to restrict all future lifestyle choices for this community and created a climate of fear and uncertainty. Choices to move for work, have or expand a family, extend or improve a home they've worked hard for, move to a home that meets their needs due to age, disability or family circumstances, choices to educate their children here, choices to continue to invest or expand their businesses, and it goes on. There will be many broken lives over the decades. This is cruel. It is all right for the planners who have nothing to do with this area that they make their decisions on paper. They do not have to witness and live among the destruction they enable. And do we desperately need this site? No, we do not. Quarries nearby which would quarry the same stone are dormant. There are many hectares of ground with outstanding planning permissions up to 2042. If history is anything to go by, these dates are likely to be further extended. All for what? Paving stones. Yes, paving stones, not for Bird's Edge, but to grace an area like some of the most expensive streets in the UK. So it is all deemed acceptable to degrade and devalue our area of Kirklees for generations to facilitate other areas of the world in becoming more desirable. This is not right. It is not in keeping with the Kirklees vision. It's a real shame that this proposal was not brought before you in early 2017. Then you would have seen the strength of public opposition and have been aware of the unacceptable social, economical and environmental consequences of developing a quarry on this site. You could have rejected it at this point before it went to the inspector, because once it goes to the inspector, well, as we all know, we are here today. But as I was told at the inspector's hearing by a member of Kirklees staff, this site was going on the plan no matter what. So I would ask you,
30 seconds,
given
please.
the strength of community, political, environmental and business opposition to this site, that you slightly amend this plan and ask for an additional modification and removal of site ME 1965A. Surely the Secretary of State will not penalise you for this slight amendment on the plan, as it is in the best of public interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And our next public representation, please. Hello, welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself, and you have a maximum of 5 minutes to give your representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening. I am Ian Walter, Finance Director of Reliance Precision Limited. I'm here today to represent Reliance Precision. Reliance is a family-owned business based in Kirklees, which celebrates its centenary next year. We have a skilled workforce and employ 200 local people with a thriving apprenticeship scheme. Reliance is a specialist manufacturing business producing high-precision components and assemblies. We export product around the world, working with companies who are leaders in their markets. Reliance is a successful local business. We have grown by 25% over the last 3 years and project a similar rate of growth going forward. Our site at Rowley Mills, Penistone Road in Lepton is now operating at capacity. Further development or relocation will be required to support our future growth. We have participated in the local plan consultation process and attended hearings to present our case over the course of the consultation. Despite a modification to policy wording, we remain disappointed with our site's designation in the document before you for adoption today. As a result of the local plan, we now find ourselves in a more disadvantaged position. Firstly, our site has been left in the Greenbelt, despite sites on our north and east boundaries having been released from the Greenbelt and now pending residential development. Secondly, we are also designated a Priority Employment Area, HUD 23, placing further restrictions on redevelopment or change of use of our site. We do not understand why our developed industrial site has been left in the Greenbelt, while sites surrounding us on Penistone Road have been released. We also don't consider that our site is of strategic importance in terms of the criteria and objectives of the Priority Employment Area designation. Our site is not well connected to the motorway network, offers no room for expansion, and has significant conflict with the existing and proposed residential allocations. In addition, the bespoke nature of the existing buildings restricts the further reuse of our site for other purposes. I'm here today to reiterate that the Greenbelt and Priority Employment Area designations place unnecessary restrictions on our growing business in Kirklees. Now, in the context of the scale of change in the local plan, we appreciate that these specific issues are not high on the Council's agenda, but they are very important to our business. They make it much harder and costly for a successful business such as ours to expand or relocate within Kirklees. We would like it formally noted that these designations remain an issue for our business and that we still have concerns. We would also like to seek assurance from the Council that they will support and assist us to negotiate the additional hurdles that we now face to develop our thriving, leading-edge business in Kirklees, whether on our current site or in taking whatever steps necessary to move to a different site. Thank you for listening and allowing us to make this representation.
Thank you. And our next public representation. Thank you. Welcome to the meeting. Please can you introduce yourself, and you have a maximum of 5 minutes to give your presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nicola Gatenby and I'm a resident within the village of Scholes, Cleckheaton. I've lived in the village for just over 50 years, seen many changes in the years that I've lived there, some of them very positive for the area and some of them not quite so positive. A general point which I'd just like to highlight at this stage, having never ever spoken at a council meeting before, is just quite how difficult it is for ordinary people, of whom I would very much describe myself as one, to keep track of planning development and gain a real understanding of the process and realise at which point concerns, objections need to be raised. And that situation, I think, really isn't helped when paper copies of the plans are not available within the immediate vicinity where you live. The plan you're discussing tonight, I believe the paper copies have been available within both Dewsbury and Huddersfield, but not within Cleckheaton. That makes it very difficult for some of the local residents who haven't got access to computers to actually understand and keep up with the process. Cleckheaton has an absolutely superb library, which is very well used by a lot of the local people, and that would have been an ideal place for plans to have been on that show for people to be aware of what was happening. If I can just move on from there, just to speak about the transport links. I'm sure you're all very well aware of the transport links within the Spenborough district. Junction 26, Chain Bar, how well used it is. It is getting to the point, if you're a local resident, that it is becoming a huge problem. There's been large numbers of houses built in Hunsworth, Cleckheaton, Stoles, Birkenshaw within the last 5 years. There's further houses indicated within the plan you're looking at tonight. There's another proposed development, large Barratt development, I believe, in Cleckheaton with another suggested 130 dwellings. They're all feeding in to that transport network. If any of you have ever used it in the morning and at rush hour times, you will realise it is horrendous and it is becoming more and more of a problem for if you're a local resident. And within that, surely, I appreciate the fact that you have to address housing difficulties, but surely there must be a responsibility to some of your existing residents who already have lived in Kirklees and contribute to it in lots of different ways. The village where I live has changed hugely over the last 5-10 years, and it's losing its community feel and identity because of some of the things happening. Further houses planned, and it is just becoming not recognisable as it was, and I'm not sure that that is a benefit in lots of ways. I travelled the same route to work for 20 years. In the last 5 years, I now have to leave an hour earlier. I have to leave at 6:30 every morning in order to avoid the rush hour on the A58 and Chain Bar, because if not, I can't guarantee that I'm at work on time. I dread to think what will happen if the plans go through for all of these houses which are being contemplated. I dread to think the issues which will occur down there. The roads within Scholes Village are already heavily congested, cars frequently double parked, you can't have 2 cars passing at the same time, cars parked on the pavement. Again, further houses that developed within the village are just going to contribute and make those problems even more difficult. My final point, I just question the justification across the area within the village where I live, but across the area for building on greenbelt land. It's a national issue which has been recognised in terms of environmental damage, and once the houses are there and the green belt is gone, there's no way of getting it back, and it is a huge concern for the children, the legacy of the future. I'm not sure that some of the short-term problems are not going to lead to longer-term ones. Short-term solutions, lead to longer-term problems. It really is a big worry. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Can I just thank everyone again who's come this evening to give public representations. We're now going to have a 15-minute break. 15 minutes. Okay, thank you. Right, members, we shall move on to the next stage of the meeting. Please note that council procedure rules are now reinstated for the purposes of debating and determining the motion. Councillor McBride, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before moving the motion, can I just make a comment about the recent objectors? I'd just like to remind them that we don't make decisions mindlessly. We do think about things carefully, that we have a planning process which is the most thorough, inclusive and extensive in the Western world. This plan has been considered in 3 consultation processes and indeed by another 3 months by an inspector. So it is not we coming to a conclusion and then imposing things on people. I think that's important as a preface to my comments. Madam Mayor, I have the honour and pleasure of recommending this proposed plan for adoption. It's the culmination of 10 years' epic journey that witnessed and withstood the vacillations of a Secretary of State who reversed, compromised and then reinstated planning guidance. The same minister redefined the duty to cooperate, which sent all West Yorkshire authorities back to the drawing board. In the process, it encountered huge pressures and lobbying from developers and from MPs who suggested we didn't need a plan. It felt the impact of local lobbies who understandably objected to loss of local amenity. And we are, as I said earlier, sensitive to that. Within the council, we toiled with the conflict of, on the one hand, the need for a substantial number of houses, and on the other, an inevitable loss of greenbelt. The inspector vindicated the views of the council that land was needed for housing and employment on the scale we proposed and in the places we proposed. But it's in no sense of triumph do we maintain our position. Rather, we've tried to expand sensitively and sustainably. However, I'm sure that most members are pleased and proud that we have persevered to get this to this point with a sound and credible plan, which will be the most up-to-date in the city region. Its adoption will enable us to fulfil our ambition to provide the land necessary for growth, for housing and sustainable amenities for the next 15 years. It's a declaration that Kirklees is open for business, not for exploitation, but for planned positive development. With regard to growth, a population ever increasing and living in smaller units of residence needs a number of houses, in this case 31,000. But we want the houses of varying types and sizes and tenures which will meet the demands for both buying and renting, as well as the increasing demand for extra care within our communities. In the process of planning for this expansion, we were always acutely aware of the need to provide adequate infrastructure to service the different locations of development. So in parallel, via the West Yorkshire Transport Fund, we've put in place all the key road and indeed rail improvements which we anticipate necessary for 15 years of growth. The plan has within it a range of policies which cover public safety, connectivity for both employment and leisure within the borough and to the wider city region. It lays down standards to protect the environment with regard to air quality, flora and fauna, as well as control mechanisms for drainage throughout the borough. It also ensures an adequate supply of minerals from within and beyond the region. We are conscious that some communities will suffer some loss of amenity, but we've tried to minimise the loss, particularly with regard to green areas. But it's worth noting that 69% of Kirklees remains greenbelt, and urban green areas have been actually increased within the plan. Where incursions have been necessary, we've tried to compensate local communities with provision and services which add value to the affected localities. Where the Council has put forward its own land for development, it's tried to use that opportunity to plan in benefits which not merely involve the community but enable local people to be part of that design and planning process. I'm particularly referring to the large sites at Chidswell, Ravensthorpe and Bradley, which will become small villages shaped by local people and local councillors. The plan provides scope for more detailed development where neighbourhood plans are being brought forward. I'm well aware of one in Kirklees, in my own ward, one in Newsham, and there are others. I will look forward to these coming to fruition. In conclusion, I would say this plan is a complex, finely crafted piece of work costing many millions. It's a credit to our officers and a large team headed by Richard Hollinson, overseen by Simon Taylor, and much earlier by Patrick Alderson. It's also a credit to many members of this Council who didn't lose faith despite setbacks. Their perseverance is rewarded by the ability to deliver growth, job opportunities and houses which will guarantee the future of this borough for a generation. I recommend this plan to the Council.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Is that seconded, please? Councillor Pando.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I'd like to second this plan to be approved. And what I want to do, I want to set a positive mood in this chamber. That's why I'm not reserving my right, and that's why I'm speaking now. Because, Madam Mayor, this is a positive mood. I've been a councillor for 17 years, and most of that time has been in trying to develop a plan that is sustainable and secures a long-term future. And let me remind everybody of the journey that we've taken to be here. And I'd like to first commend all the councillors that have actually been part of this process, because one of the things that they know that we have to have a plan. There might be some difference of opinion, but the previous leaders know that this is a difficult task. And this is a great opportunity in this council chamber that we actually now at the verge of having a monumental milestone in actually moving forward. Our councillors have been working really, really hard in their communities. I've mentioned the leaders, Madam Mayor, and particular tribute to Councillor Peter McBride, who's actually made it a personal passion and a commitment to actually get here. So thank you very much, Councillor McBride. Not to mention our officers. Our officers, Peter mentioned, have done sterling work to actually get to this stage. Madam Mayor, also you will know that we are the first local authority in West Yorkshire to get a plan at a stage where the inspector that has been appointed by the government thinks that it's sound. Not just sound in terms of where we are today, but the inspector recognises that the plan is actually a balanced plan between land for new development, economic aspiration, and protecting our open spaces and our heritage. It sets a new ambition for housing, for commercial development, and for business development. It sets a roadmap for a sustainable economy, which will provide thousands of homes that we so desperately need. At last budget meeting, I talked about the ambition. This is just one example of the ambition we talked about, the plan that we have in front of us. It's fantastic news for this council, and we should be proud today that we've actually got something that we can actually be proud on a cross-party basis. This is only has been carried out as a result of the hard work of the Cabinet, councillors and officers. We will deliver a plan that provides thousands of new homes and commercial premises. It provides the ambition we are looking for to move into the future. Madam Mayor, let me be clear. This is a plan for housing and for growth, and it sets the pace for the next 15 years. The adoption of the plan will allow our partners and our community to actually get behind it. It will shape the future of our towns and villages, it will boost economic growth, and it will create healthier communities. And we will also develop a scenery and a scenario where businesses can actually start to actually look positively that we mean business. It's a blueprint for the whole of Kirklees. It builds on the high levels of investment that we've already initiated, and no doubt it will bring in further inward investment. Madam Mayor, the plan is about prosperity and well-being for Kirklees and everybody that lives in it. It's about regeneration, renewal, and rejuvenating our infrastructure. At its heart is what we're talking about, the Kirklees community and the Kirklees people. It will be the lifeblood of a dynamic, prosperous and positive future, and we owe this for our future generation. I'm passionate about this. I know many of you are as well. So let's get behind this plan, let's get it approved, and let's get on with the business that we need to do. We owe that to our communities. Thank you very much, and I urge all members to actually support this. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Are there any comments on this matter? Please can I remind members you have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak, and you may only speak once. Councillor Amanda Pinnock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for inviting me to speak. Although my colleagues and I agree to the adoption of the local plan tonight, we do so with some concern outstanding and mindful of how the local plan will significantly impact on our ward and current residents. Madam Mayor, I know the provision of housing is paramount in this town. I know that our Cabinet and Council officers have worked extremely hard putting together a robust strategy that aims to deliver on the government's requirements, but also based on the need of Kirklees. And I know difficult decisions had to be made. But in my ward, where a large housing allocation is proposed, encompassing Bradley Park and some loss of greenbelt land in Fixby, this has understandably caused concern and unrest. As councillors, as part of our role, it is to manage expectation and address fears and concerns, which, as you can imagine, has been challenging at times. The main concerns raised have been the loss of an 18-hole municipal golf course, which has proved to be extremely successful in recent years, the impact of existing infrastructure and the impact of new infrastructure required, the use of greenbelt land for the development of Bradley and Fixby, and the impact on existing air quality management areas. These are all legitimate and reasonable concerns which must be taken into account. And whilst the local plan addresses many of these concerns through the creation of new policies and standards, it is important that specific local concerns are further addressed through mastering planning. As I say, Madam Mayor, I do accept the Inspector's view that the plan is legally sound, and I feel it is now crucial that we have an adopted plan. Madam Mayor, looking forward to the future then, post-adoption. It will be incumbent on the Council to take positive steps to engage the local community and councillors. As the Bradley housing site allocation is within the Council's ownership, the community and councillors must be instrumental in the shaping of the landscape and how we want it to look. However, Madam Mayor, I think this must go further than our standard consultation processes. I believe that linking this with a rollout of the Place Standards tool and perhaps the use of local ballots, as tried in other councils, is something we should look at. To conclude, Madam Mayor, I would also strongly appeal to the Council and my colleagues to keep us well informed at each stage of the process and allow us to be influential in decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Finnett. Councillor Mather, please.
Sorry, I wasn't thinking. Madam Mayor, I rise to support our local plan by focusing on the environmental impact. A sustainability appraisal was prepared alongside the local plan, which incorporated the legal requirements for strategic environmental assessment and looked into all the individual policies and proposals in the local plan and their cumulative impacts. The inspector confirms that this was done and assessed the balance between new development and potential impacts on the environment. For the first time in 20 years, the Council will have an up-to-date, robust policies which are consistent with national planning policy on the following, which will have a positive impact on the environment compared to our current UDP policies. So, for example, sustainable travel, which includes walking, cycling, and even horse riding. The design, renewable and local carbon energy, flood risks, sustainable drainage, biodiversity and geodiversity, landscaping, historic environment, air quality management, contaminated and unstable land, and sustainable waste solutions. The plan provides an up-to-date planning policy framework for protecting land in the Greenbelt and significant areas of land use as urban green spaces, which are important for local amenity, health and well-being. The plan includes a strategic green infrastructure network which has been prepared alongside Natural England that links our green networks with those in adjoining authority areas. The plan embeds environmental designation in the development plan which would not normally be protected, for example, local wildlife sites, local geological sites, biodiversity opportunity zones. A specific air quality impact study was carried out for all the proposals contained within our local plan. Madam Mayor, I want to thank our staff and members who have worked hard in developing this very comprehensive plan over the years. I wholeheartedly endorse the plan and commend it to members here tonight in this chamber. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Councillor Munro, please.
Hey, Madam Mayor. It is clear we need more housing, but we need the right kind of houses in the right places. In response to our broken housing market and a government white paper planning for the right homes in the right places, guidance was given by the government to councils on addressing housing need. Office of National Statistics projections on population growth provide the fundamental building block of that guidance because the data informs how many houses are required to meet housing need. The local plan is based on ONS data from the 2014 forecast on population growth, but the 2016 data from the ONS reduces that forecast by over 30%. This equates to 10,600 fewer homes. So therefore, across Kirklees, we only actually require 20,540 new homes. This means that virtually all homes planned to be built on Greenbelt including about 900 in Lepton and Fenny Bridge, need not be built. There is no need to build on Bradley Golf Course. There is no need to build on the huge site between Thornhill and Ravensthorpe. Just no need, and no special circumstances to build on Greenbelt, as the justification for removing those special circumstances no longer exists if the Council use the 2016 ONS figures, because we don't actually need minimum 31,140 houses. We only need 20,540. This, then, is a true tragedy, as we will needlessly lose our beautiful Greenbelt to housing should the plan be adopted today. The Inspector noted the 2016 ONS data reduced forecast in a letter to the Council and gave them the chance to reduce the number of houses. However, crucially, the Council declined to take this step, citing economic ambitions and firmly sticking to the 2014 ONS projections. This does not make it right. Here are the latest Kirklees fact sheets, 2018, current, modern, glossy. Yet inside they contain the latest up-to-date data on household projections. And yes, the 2016 ONS projections. Now, isn't that hypocrisy? Strategically, this local plan is wrong for the area of Lepton and Fenny Bridge, as it will place an untenable burden on the Penistone Road-Wakefield Road corridors, choking our roads and the people who live alongside it through increases in air pollution for which there is no known safe level, which is well documented through scientific research that has shown the long-term effects of air pollution can lead to premature death. The impact on our health has not been calculated. We know that there is a need for affordable homes. According to the Strategic Housing Market Assessment 2016, there was a backlog of affordable homes of 6,513, and 1,049 per year are required to be built across Kirklees over the next 5 years to address this need. And while the Council plans to provide 1,000 of these homes in the next 5 years on Council-owned land, this will not meet the current backlog. The plan should therefore allow for all Council-owned sites across Kirklees to be developed for affordable housing in order to address the growing backlog of affordable homes that are needed. We are told there will be an increase in people aged 65 and over by 2031, so we need to ensure a sufficiency of the type of homes that people want and need as their circumstances change. Yet how do we know we will have the right kind of homes built in our local areas for people who want to downsize or who want to stay in Lepton and Fenny Bridge? Around 12,000 people are registered for social housing in Kirklees, and the impact of welfare benefit changes suggest these numbers will rise. Homelessness is increasing, and the implementation of the Homelessness Reduction Act will impact on the way we work with people in housing need. Yet I am not convinced these much-needed social houses will be built quickly enough to meet the need, so I therefore have queries over the delivery of social housing. In my area, the views from Woodsum Hall Grade 1 listed building are being destroyed, as even the opinions of the government's own statutory advisor on the historic environment and heritage issues have been rejected, and mitigation strategies will now be applied to reduce impact. The residents of Lepton and Fenny Bridge have not been listened to. I have spoken with many of them, and it is clear they are opposed to the proposed high density of housing in our area.
Thank you, Councillor Munro.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zaman, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I would like to thank the officers who have worked extremely hard for many years in putting this local plan together and ensuring we get the right housing for residents of Kirklees. Families up and down the country are being trapped in poverty due to high housing costs against a backdrop of rising food bank queues. Families on low incomes continue to face impossible choices about whether to pay the rent or put food on the table. Research by the Mental Health Foundation finds that many people unhappy with their housing are twice as likely to be unhappy with mental health issues and 4 times unlikely to say that it makes their health worse. GPs often identify housing issues when discussing factors involved in their patients' mental health presentations, both as a sole cause and as an exacerbating factor of mental ill health. The local plan provides more housing choices and better living arrangements. I support the plan as it provides opportunities to look at specialist housing accommodation, assisted living and extra care housing. Good quality, affordable and safe housing is vital to good mental health and well-being. I'm aware that poor quality housing can have a significant impact on mental health. The quality of homes, particularly for those who are vulnerable, is crucial. Extra care homes are absolutely necessary if we are to reduce pressure on the NHS and on social care. Batley East Ward contains 2 significant sites which would allow these opportunities to be explored as part of providing an overall mix of housing to meet the needs of the population in the area. The allocation at Soothill provides a significant opportunity for specialist housing accommodation to be provided on council-owned land, and this is a great example of where the council can use its own land to achieve Kirklees Council's ambition for mixed, balanced communities, as well as working with partners and people to meet specialist needs. The council can work effectively with the developers on privately owned land by using the new local plan policies to place, shape and master plan development sites, such as the strategic site at Chidswell, which falls partly into my ward, and we will aim to influence this large site to meet specialist accommodation needs. The local plan also contains a number of specific policy references to assist in the delivery of different forms of housing which have not been updated for almost 20 years, including proposals to aim to provide mix of housing in terms of site and ownership, including consideration of the need for different types of housing and appropriate design that ensure buildings are suitable and can be adapted to meet the needs of people needing specialist accommodation at present and into later life. The local plan allows for provision for extra housing care to meet the range of needs, including frail and elderly people, and those can be incorporated into larger developments where it would assist in creating a balanced community. It will also provide accommodation to meet the cultural needs of minority communities. As part of the policy, Kirklees Council will negotiate the provision of affordable housing by developers and partners to be provided on sites of more than 10 homes. This means the proportion of affordable homes should be 20% of the total units on marketing housing sites. This will go a long way in making affordable accommodation to families on low incomes and waiting list. The local plan will assist the Council's latest housing strategy, which seeks to meet a range of diverse housing needs, provide high-quality, affordable housing, and enable the delivery of long-term supply of affordable housing. Therefore, Madam Mayor, I support the local plan presented before us.
Thank you, Councillor Zaman. Councillor Sokol, please.
Madam Mayor, I rise to support local plan because the plan stopped land grab by greedy developer due to our lack of 5-year supply. This plan stopped urban green spaces being stolen by developer, turning set aside land into profit-making housing sites. Madam Mayor, in the last few years, we lost many green spaces in our towns and in our villages because our planning officer and our 3 planning committee have been unable to defend those sites in the absence of local plans. So this is our opportunity to protect those urban spaces. Madam Mayor, the plan has been well drafted by our officer, giving our community opportunity to be involved. The plan, it does not have everyone's approval, but was fully investigated and accepted by a thorough inspector. The plan gives our planning committee a steer to make good decision plan that has honesty and transparency. Madam Mayor, our local plan would make land available for our new jobs, more homes, and protect and promote more open spaces, including those with children play facilities. We've been asking for a long time. Madam Mayor, finally, I applaud our officer for all their hard work in getting us into this position and putting together a plan against the onslaught of greedy developer and landowner who run away with pockets of money once these unwanted sites are built upon. So, Madam Mayor, I fully support this local plan and I ask the members of this chamber to support the local plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sawkill. Councillor David Hall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, here we are at last. It seems to have taken an age to come. Now it's here. Not that I've been looking forward to this with much excitement. In fact, probably on the excitement scale, it rates somewhere between a trip to the dentist and watching paint dry. But whatever our divergent views on this plan, Madam Mayor, we must thank officers for their diligence and their hard work over many years. We have consistently opposed this plan. The inspectors may have ruled that this is a sound plan, but that does not mean that it is the right plan for Kirklees. It may have been drawn up legally, in accordance with the MPPF, with the proper consultation, etc., and supporting documents, but it is only one of 1,000 plans which could have been drawn up for Kirklees and found sound by the inspectors. My view that it is not the right plan for Kirklees. We have no argument with the purposes of a local plan. A local plan is needed. Yes, we need more housing. There is no one in this chamber that would argue with that. Yes, we need more businesses. We need to encourage business growth. We need the right planning policies in place to guard our quality of life. But this is a plan, Madam Mayor, which will achieve the opposite of what it purports to do. The plan promises 31,000 more houses across the borough in sustainable developments. And yet much of this housing growth is concentrated in the places where the infrastructure is already groaning under immense pressure, and this will lead to unsustainable development. The plan promises to encourage economic growth, but many things in this plan will have the effect of driving away business and inhibiting economic growth, as my colleagues will highlight later in the debate. The plan promises to safeguard green spaces while at the same time threatening thousands of acres of greenbelt land with development. Now, one of the tasks and one of the duties I have, which I take on with great relish from time to time, is to go to speak to children in our local schools. And when I go in, I always start with the question about what do you like most about where you live and what do you like least about where you live. And in all the times I've visited the local schools to speak to the children, the top answer every time, what do you like about where you live, is that there is green spaces, there are green fields, there are places we can play, walk the dog. And this is the next generation speaking, and we will let them down with this plan. The plan promises much, but it will deliver little, and it's particularly deficient on the urgent need for infrastructure to be in place before development commences. Neither does it set out a clear view of what or where the Cabinet wants Kirklees to be in 15 years' time. I know what I read into the plan. We shall become a series of congested, overcrowded, dormitory conurbations for Leeds and Bradford. And that may suit Leeds and Bradford, but our Cabinet members should have fought harder against that line regionally. I think we ought to thank the inspectors for their work on the report as well, and to acknowledge those changes and modifications to the plan which are welcome. And just to be parochial for a minute or two, that includes the deletion of the Cooper Bridge development and the Robert Town Lane development, which it was crackers to even put in there in the first place. These modifications and revisions, spread across the whole borough, are largely due to many hours spent by groups of residents fighting for what they knew to be the good of their communities. And I pay tribute to their efforts, and I do feel great sympathy for those community groups who have fought so hard but not won their battles. Given the way this plan has been presented and trumpeted by the administration, one would think it has the wholehearted support of all the residents of Kirklees. Councillor McBride said he had the honour and the pleasure of moving it. But this is not a popular plan. There will be many people who find this plan particularly unpalatable. It will change their communities, it will alter their environment, it will have long-lasting and negative effects on their neighbourhoods, lifestyles and health of present residents and those of generations to come. Madam Mayor, this is not the right plan.
30 seconds, Councillor Hall.
Thank you. It should never have made it to today. We will not support it, but I suppose the Labour group will support it with glee, even though it will blight their wards as well as it will blight ours. And I just hope that their constituents will take note how they vote this evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Lawson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks also, I think, to the people who've been engaged with this process right from the very beginning. The members of the public who've been here tonight, and all the ones who spent all the evenings, all the days plodding around the sites and what have you, just to make sure that they got their views felt right at the very beginning. The Liberal Democrats worked hard with them to explain to them how the process worked, and that at this stage very little could be done in the way of amendments and that kind of process. So I'd also like to thank the officers and the directors for the huge amount of work they put into this, and thanks also to the portfolio holder and indeed to the inspectors and their staff. This is not work for the faint of heart. That much is clear. I'll start by saying we need a local development plan. I'll just put that out there right now. We do. It's a given. Those who've sat on planning committees at any time since the loss of the public open land test case at Blackwood Farm in Cleckheaton will roll their eyes when I talk about the 5-year supply of housing as an argument for an application. It's still being used, and until we adopt a plan, it always will be. On which point I'm glad to see that we're using the Liverpool model and not the Sedgefield model. That gives me great joy, actually. So a plan at this stage, it brings clarity and confidence. But the question tonight is, does this plan bring clarity and confidence to us? Now, I think there's a couple of comments that I'd like to make, and they stem from the report Planning for New Homes from the National Audit Office, which was released on the 8th of February this year. They throw what I would call quite large question marks onto the plan. I'll start with a quote, and this is about infrastructure. It says, "The way infrastructure is funded is complex, involves several government departments and private developers, and lacks cohesion and certainty. To create new homes and places for people to live, infrastructure such as public and private transport, healthcare, schools and utilities must be in place to support those homes and the people living in those homes." To keep it quick, it goes on to say that these infrastructure needs are reliant upon a number of organisations, not least government departments, who are under no requirement to align their spending with authority plans, and that the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government has only done a rough estimate of this funding, so costing is at best uncertain. An example of this is at Chain Bar. There will be others, but this is a local one that I know. The government has withdrawn plans to build a dedicated northbound connection to the M606 from the westbound 62. I suspect that it was pulled during the plan's inspection process, so it's too late to do anything about, but still leaves major developments in Kirklees with a principle of development in place when highways alleviation has been quietly ditched. The report goes on to highlight that infrastructure cannot always be provided through Section 106 money. Again, as we know on planning, developers now use that money routinely to cover unexpected development costs and profit margins. Despicable, but it's true. That's me talking, not the report. The report, I think the third point that I'd like to take from the report before I finish is that it says, in its own words, the department's standard method for assessing the need for new homes has weaknesses and as a result will be revised. To sum up then, we have a plan that has taken roughly a third of its housing stock from former Greenbelt and is willing to hand it over for development for no firm commitment about infrastructure. A plan that is based on flawed methodology and, according to the Ministry itself, a methodology that won't exist in the near future. It's also a plan that's hard to deliver. Figures from the Office of National Statistics suggest that we would need to deliver about 50%, I think, increase on our highest point in this century. Labour will not be forgiven if this plan sacrifices green land without getting the types of houses we need. If it fails to deliver the plan's rates and infrastructure, there will be a legacy that we will not be around to put right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Patrick, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It feels like spring out there, doesn't it? So I was doing some spring cleaning earlier on in the week and I came across this. Right, and it's dated, it's the Local Development Framework Consultation, one of many. And it's dated June, July 2006. And it says on it, a consultation on where new homes and other development should be built in Kirklees over the next 15 years. It's taken 13 years to produce a local plan for adoption, and now we've got another 15 years henceforth. Some of you in the chamber want to see this because you're fairly new councillors, but we've been at it for quite a long time. As we know, the ill-fated LDF, this Local Development Framework, fell at the first hurdle, considered unsound by the Planning Inspectorate. Yet its successor, the local plan, looked very similar, if not identical, to the LDF, and officers were tasked with getting it past the inspector. It's hardly surprising, therefore, that this version has scraped across the line and can only be found sound, the summary to our agenda says, if all the inspector's recommendations are accepted. There were times during the public inquiry when those present thought the plan was destined for the bin. The inspector has nearly rewritten the plan, certainly made major changes to it. Inspector Katie Childs did a thorough job and gave all sides equal and fair chance to get their points across. Whilst I might not agree with all her conclusions, let no one here lay the blame at the door of the Planning Inspectorate, as some did when the LDF failed. I attended the public inquiry on a number of days where we looked at the legal tests, policies and site allocations. It was obvious that the disappointment with the plan was shared by those representing landowners and developers, as well as those representing other groups. The parties around the table were at one. We are not surprised at this side of the chamber because we've always said it's a poor plan for the borough, lacking in ambition and vision. It will leave us lagging behind our neighbouring authorities. This is an opportunity missed for the future development of the rural areas and the towns. Despite my reservations about the plan, some changes have been made through lobbying that will help us in Home Valley South. Unfortunately, most of the sites allocated for housing in the plan in my ward have already been approved, many without sufficient planning gain. As these sites started to come forward, there was very little planning gain. It has only been in recent times that planning committees have sought fit to ask for contributions for roads, junctions, schools and affordable housing. I want to thank planning committees for recognising the need to improve road infrastructure where officer recommendations failed to do so. Through the local plan process there have been concessions, and it's only right and fair to recognise these. Home Valley South councillors have listened to and worked with local people to try to make this plan work better for our communities. Road infrastructure improvements have been agreed for Holmfirth and New Mill to cope with the increase in traffic. Good employment land is in short supply, and additional land was protected, but alas not as much as we would have hoped for. Some of the sites allocated for housing have been removed from the plan, most notably in Scholes. This plan could have done so much more for the borough in general, and rural south in particular. I think maybe we'd be better off in Barnsley. Creating a plan that works is not about politics, it's about recognising what we have and making the most of it. Rural South Kirklees has just been overlooked. No recognition of the contribution successful businesses in the south bring to the borough and indeed to the region. No investment or encouragement for growth here. It seems we are prepared to build homes on employment land currently occupied by successful businesses. This plan is short-sighted, is a missed opportunity, and as such I cannot support it. It's a great pity that alternative ideas and suggestions have not been taken on board.
30 seconds, Councillor Patrick.
That businesses have not been listened to. For all the consultation exercises that have taken place, none has been done properly, and that was a source of much debate at the public inquiry. I just hope that when this council comes to renew this plan, we do a far better job of it and we get it done in good time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Thompson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to say that the plan is well thought out, encourages new business and assists existing businesses, is balanced throughout all the wards, has a utility, highway and education needs woven throughout it, has ambition and pride stamped on every page, creates a greener and more wooded borough for the residents to enjoy and the new population that we want to attract to enjoy also. The only man that's as obnoxious on the outside as he is when he speaks. I would love to say all of those things, but I'm unable to do so. And the main reason I fail to support this plan is its incongruities. And I'd like to just tonight give two examples of those incongruities. One is, we talk a lot in the plan about green space, tree planting, flora and fauna, and its protection. And then what I notice in the plan that Bradley Park is over 120 plus acres of recreational space, that at least half of that will be chewed up for development. Plus 15 acres of indigenous trees, some of them over 40 years old, which at least 50% of those will go. Now, just to put that into perspective, 8 acres of trees is about the same size as 12 football pitches of trees gone. And then we talk about flora and fauna. At least half the green space will go, 60 acres, which equates to about 90 football pitches. It also makes profit for the borough. Some £4 million has been raised from that site since its inception. One thing that does bother me is that there are numerous sterile green areas that are more appropriate than this particular one. So why is it that we talk about protecting flora and fauna, we talk about protecting green spaces and our trees, and we go to plant trees, but the first thing that we decide to do is decimate one of the biggest areas of those very things that we have in the borough? So that's the first incongruity. The next is business growth, open for business, assisting existing businesses. And then what I find that when I started is the first thing that we are going to do is put a gypsy site in the middle of Junction 27 Retail Park, which I find really interesting. And what I'd like to do is draw a comparison. First of all, travelling show people accommodation and the difference between the gypsy site. Now, travelling show people accommodation. Have you finished? My mum always taught me that manners become a person. So, you know, I do not overspeak anybody in this chamber, and I would appreciate if you didn't either. Is that okay with you? Well, I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to the lady behind you.
Can we
okay?
just have a bit of hush, please, and let the member who's speaking speak?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the difference between a travelling show person and a gypsy. Well, at 15 years old, I left home and became a fairground show person. I worked on the fairgrounds for a number of years and lived in a caravan. So I know the difference between a fairground show person and a gypsy. And no fairground show person would live on a gypsy caravan site. So that's the first thing I need to point out. The second thing is 2.4 miles away from Junction 27, there is already a gypsy encampment. And I want to give you an insight into what that looks like. This year, that's from January to now, there has been one patrol car gone into the gypsy site. The police had to run for their lives, and the panda car was destroyed by baseball bats and pieces of 4x2. The next thing is
30 seconds, Councillor Thompson.
horses outside, choked to death on the latch. So I'm not sure that that's a good area to put a gypsy encampment when we collect £7.6 million in rates from Junction 27, and then we're talking about putting a site in the middle of it. So those are the two incongruities that I wanted to point out as far as the local plan and why I won't be supporting it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I'd like to say that I appreciate the time that's been put in by officers and those involved in putting this plan together. Whilst I may not agree with a lot of it, I do appreciate the time that's gone into it. And I do recognise the need to have a plan and to have the right plan. And I also recognise the need to have housing and accommodation for everybody, be it a traveller or any member of our community. So I take exception to the last comments. I do have concerns about the sites being identified for potential development in the local plan, especially the loss of green belts and the destruction of Bradley Golf Course. I recognise the need for additional housing across Kirklees. I've seen a lot of developments in my own ward which have taken place and the impact that can have without having the appropriate infrastructure in place. I also believe that there are sites which are inappropriate for housing developments because of a lack of access, as well as the negative impact that the additional vehicles will have on our local roads. In addition to the impact that additional housing will have on the local infrastructure, the proposals will also result in a loss of green space, put pressure on our already oversubscribed schools, doctors and dentists. And I don't believe the infrastructure and viability policy deals with this accordingly. Whilst housing development is necessary across Kirklees, we need to ensure we have the right housing in the right areas and that we're able to deal with it. In just over 10 years, the Linley Ward received the largest percentage share of housing development in Huddersfield. As houses still go up, we can now see the impact. We are losing our community feel and also our identity, and with a minimum of 1,160 houses to come in the Linley Ward as a result of this plan. I read some comments in the paper recently regarding the plan that came from a apparently senior councillor. One of the comments was it's taken 10 years to get to this stage. We have to draw a line under it. Really? So regardless of the impact, we just have to draw a line under it. Ridiculous outlook. The planning inspector has found the local plan to be sound and legally compliant, was another comment. This is true. Another comment was, for me, that means we have to agree it. Well, no, we don't. We absolutely do not have to agree it. We could have a different plan, which was mentioned earlier by Councillor Hall. We could have a plan that has less of an impact, that will be sound and legally compliant, and take into account the views and concerns of members, campaign groups and residents. We have choices, and you continue to make the wrong choices for our communities. Not for the first time after reading some of these comments, it just shows the arrogance, laziness and lack of interest in our residents and in our communities. Housing development is necessary across Kirklees, but we need to ensure we have the right housing in the right areas and have the appropriate infrastructure in place to deal with it. This plan does not deal with the impact, and after seeing the results in my own area, in the Linley Ward, it would be wrong to proceed in this manner
abandoning our communities and not dealing with the basics of ensuring that we have the required infrastructure in place to deal with it. This is not our plan. This is not a plan that reflects what our residents want.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Councillor Holmes, please.
First, obviously, I echo what everybody said about thanking officers and the planning inspector. I also want to thank residents because, as we all know, they've been a big part of this. I think the situation now is that everybody's in consultation fatigue, not just because of the local plan, but because of so many other things, which made it all the more difficult that when the plan went back out to consultation after one of the many rounds that we've had, and sites were changed, I think it was very difficult to engage people at that point. And certainly one of the sites on my ward, that was a massive issue for us. Another thing that's happened, and I think, again, is a major issue to us, is that we've lost confidence in a lot of members of the public now. Only today there's been a comment I've been tagged in, as well as a couple of colleagues over on in the Cleckheaton ward, and the view seemed to be that, well, it's done. It's just going to happen. They're just going to vote it through, them meaning yourselves. That would be a shame if you're going to do that, if you're going to ignore everything that's happened tonight. We've had some really strong speakers here tonight, particularly the Bird Edge. There were a number of speakers there. And if you do pass this plan, and like Councillor Burt says, it doesn't have to go through, whether it's sound or not, there is still an option of doing a different plan, one that would work better. You know, if you are determined to put it through, standing up and saying, we've got some difficult decisions, it's hard. It doesn't exonerate you if you press that button and you vote this through. We might have 69% of Greenbelt left after this, but as one of our fabulous speakers, one of the members of the public said, once it's gone, it has gone. We won't ever get it back. A lot of you in here are like me, you've got fairly young children, maybe grandchildren. What happens in this room tonight will affect thousands of people now, thousands of people in the next generation, and forever. Actually, in a way, I feel really sympathetic towards Labour. In a very strange way. You must be sat squirming in your seats tonight. You must be squirming, because if you represent a ward, such as where Chidswell is, or where Bradley Golf Course is, pressing that button, putting this plan through, think about how that's going to affect the people who voted you in, who trust you, who rely on you to do what's best for Kirklees, and in their minds, more specifically, for their ward. I would be squirming, and if you're not, I'm really surprised. Really surprised. I'm actually shaking at the thought of this going through, because the Greenbelt issue alone, apart from looking at transport, apart from looking at the fact that you might put a load more jobs in, nobody will be able to get there, because they'll all be sat at traffic lights, on roads, because one thing you're going to do is you're going to solve the speeding issues. Nobody will be moving anywhere. They might have new jobs. You see how quick the staff can get there. Arriva and Metro are cutting bus services. You think they're going to come back? I doubt it. I think really carefully. I don't know how you can press that button tonight. Because just think about it. In years to come, you're really, really going to be having a crisis of conscience on this.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Councillor Armour, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I fully appreciate that we need a local plan in place, and if for no other reason than to protect our open spaces from predatory developers. I just don't think this Labour plan does an effective job. There is evidence that the target number for house building is outdated and now seems far beyond the likely need in the period of this plan. This 15-year local plan reminds me of one of Stalin's 5-year plans. Produce as many tractors as we can, regardless of whether or not they are fit for purpose or if there is a market for them. Like Labour today, Stalin relied upon a Marxist-Leninist economic theory. This approach has been thoroughly discredited. As with tractors, so with houses. No matter what the local demand is for, Left to their own devices, the developers will overwhelmingly build 3- and 4-bed executive-style houses, with the least number of smaller homes that they can get away with. Never mind that we really need many more starter homes for young families, or smaller homes for older people to downsize into, thus freeing up larger homes. I see little if anything in this plan to ensure we get the right houses in the right locations. No matter what council tax multiplier we apply to empty properties, there's a very clear danger that this plan will replace green fields with thousands of empty houses. Judging by the stratagems used by developers, I think we'll see many houses left deliberately incomplete pending sale in order to avoid council tax penalties. Swapping green fields for shell houses does not seem the best way to build communities, or to make Kirklees an attractive place to live, or to rejuvenate the local economy. Another glaring omission from this plan is the almost complete absence of a strategy for upgrading local roads. For example, in Lepton we see plans for large-scale house building, which, should they be occupied, can only add significant volumes of traffic to Penistone Road and thence either out towards Shepley or inwards to the town centre via Waterloo. This situation will be greatly exacerbated were the Stores Hall project ever to come to fruition. Yet there are precious few provisions to address road congestion, and a very distinct lack of a joined-up approach. There's nothing to offer any comfort to the residents of Flockton, for example, even though they've seen significant numbers of new houses built already, and the plan sees more to come in Grangemore. The A637 through Flockton and the V618, which continues down to Bradley, are already heavily congested at peak times. This plan could only make matters worse. Looking around the borough, I can see a number of areas where large-scale proposed development, whether domestic or commercial, will cause significant extra congestion on the roads. It's generally accepted that traffic congestion adds greatly to airborne pollution, and I note that this borough has a clean air strategy somewhere. Yet Labour's local plan does very little to address this issue. Looked at in the round, this plan seems designed to turn Kirklees into a dormitory for Leeds, Manchester and perhaps Sheffield. The emphasis is on building houses, with little more than a tokenistic gesture towards industry. Where is the linked plan to bring a working digital economy to the whole of the borough? It's absent. Where is the scheme to attract industry to the borough? Again, that is absent, and in fact we've heard tonight from Reliance Gears that this plan will hinder their expansion plans. Even in its own terms, this dormitory plan is a recipe for failure. There is no point in building houses if the occupants are unable to either work near to or from home or to commute readily. Without good digital connectivity, without massive improvements to the road network, and without attracting more jobs to the borough, we have nothing extra to offer economically. Without looking to encourage vibrant local communities rather than sterile dormitory suburbs, we have nothing extra to add socially. We're storing up problems for the future, not planning for a better Kirklees.
30 seconds, Councillor Armour.
Thank you. I've also been moved by the passionate objections to ME 1965A, the quarry extension. I take on board the arguments against it. I do not support that extension. All in all, I cannot support this Labour plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armour. Councillor Lees Hamilton, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Whilst I understand that we have to have a local plan, I can't support this plan. And although the planning inspector has found this local plan to be sound and legally compliant, well, that's all it is. It lacks vision, it lacks enterprise, but the biggest and most damning indictment of this local plan is the lack of infrastructure and the excessive sacrifice of the Greenbelt. There are no significant highway and junction improvements proposed in this plan, at least not until 2001 houses are being built on Murfield's doorstep. Even then, there are no clear plans as to where a possible access road could and would be built. Site H2089, 4,000 houses on Greenbelt. 571 of these houses are in Mirfield. Mirfield is not Dewsbury. It is not reasonable to regard this site, both physically and functionally, as an extension of Dewsbury. What this plan does not take into consideration is that the 571 houses within the Mirfield boundary will not be able to utilise the Mirfield Health Centre. The local surgery in Mirfield has confirmed this fact. I understand the developer was somewhat surprised by this news too. This will place a greater burden on the health service of Thornhill and Dewsbury, and an even greater burden on the already congested highway network, the A644 Ravensthorpe corridor. And that's when we should all toll the bells of doom. H2089 is land that is valuable to the wildlife of the area. It's a floodplain. It's the boundary between Mirfield and Ravensthorpe. The local plan states there should be clear boundaries between towns, i.e. no urban sprawl. This plan does not protect the residents of Mirfield from urban sprawl. There is no provision in this plan for future school places or healthcare provision. This plan does not take into consideration the downgrading of Dewsbury Hospital and the possible future of HRI. Site H40 at Granny Lane is all floodplain. I've seen it firsthand, believe me, it floods. The plan has most of the housing on the Ravensthorpe side of Mirfield and the employment at the Cooper Bridge end, albeit somewhat reduced, thank you to the planning inspector. My ward is sandwiched in the middle of it, and with absolutely no provision or plans to improve traffic flows at any of the major junctions within the A644 and the A62 corridor. There's no provision for carriageway widening. All I can see in the future life of this plan is longer traffic jams, huge queues at major junctions, more air pollution and more fed up and frustrated commuters as they sit in traffic jams watching their lives tick away, minute by minute. It takes over 30 minutes now to travel just 3 miles between Dewsbury and Mirfield at peak travel time. God help us with another 2,000 houses and associated vehicle movements on this road. You cannot get out of Mirfield on a morning, and you cannot get back in of an evening. The highway network is beyond saturation point and has been for several years. Mirfield has 2 major roads in and out, the A62 and the A644, and I see nothing in this plan to improve traffic flows on either of these roads. It's just not sustainable. Every single one of Mirfield schools are oversubscribed and have been now for several years. This is a well-known fact. The local highways around the schools are congested and overburdened. The residents are fed up with the traffic around their houses. Where is sufficient education provision for all the new homes? Because I don't see it in this plan. Or are the new residents not having any children? There's no vision, there's no joined-up thinking, there's a loss of greenbelt,
30 seconds, Councillor
congested road networks, no healthcare, more air pollution, more frustration. I cannot support this plan, not in any shape, form or fashion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Louise Hamilton. Councillor Shade, please.
I listened to the lady from Scholes, and she's right what she said, that the public don't understand the planning process. And I think members of the planning committees who sat for years and years will know that, and they never do. Until it affects them, they don't really understand it. And I was thinking that probably a big problem with that is that we don't teach people in schools the planning process. We teach things like we teach them to build. By law, they've got to teach people about invisible people, but they don't have to teach them about planning process. Yet, I thought that that's a problem, that we're not teaching the public out what the planning process is. But after listening to the speeches tonight, I think it's a worse problem that we're not really teaching councillors what the planning process is. Because there's quite a lot of statements, I think, if we analyse what's been said tonight by lots of speakers, they've said the officers have done a wonderful job. The inspector's done a wonderful job, but they've got it all wrong. And we hear how long it's taken. We hear how long it's taken. And it's taken that long, and it said, and we're waving a thing around. And we forget why it was taking so long, because the first time we came here, this is the fourth time I've sat in this chamber with a plan. Fourth time. Once we didn't get anywhere, and we didn't get anywhere because the inspector turned around and said, you haven't put enough hours in it. That's what they've just turned down for. It's turned down because you haven't put enough hours in it. We've got an officer today that told us that the government's guidelines says you've got to go for the 2014 figures, not the 2016 figures. Yet we've got member after member stand up saying, we've too many houses. Knock all the houses out. The roads are blocked. We don't need any more houses. We don't need to build any more. We've got members stand up and saying we shouldn't be building on the sites that we own and we control, yet we want to be able to dictate what sort of houses go up. But to do that, it's better if we build on houses we've got. We've got members wanting to protect the green belt that all of us in this chamber know, and if you don't know, you've been asleep for the last 4 or 5 years, that the problem is without a plan, developers can come along and build on green land. Because we haven't got a plan, we haven't got the plan. So that's why it's essential to have a plan, and not to cast off today, because of one objection that's coming at this stage, and cast it off and say not vote for the plan today. So we've then got to go back to the inspector another 4 years of developers being able to build wherever they want. And remember, if we turn this down, this will be worse than it's ever been. It will be an absolute free-fall for developers to build everywhere. Yet we all know that. And if you don't know it, you shouldn't be sat in this chamber. Yet you're willing to stand up to gain a few votes in your local area to say, we don't want any more houses. We want to stop all development. We don't want to be a damage zone. We don't want industry. We don't want houses. We don't want any more development. I haven't heard one of you stand up and say, oh, this is the wrong place. These houses are being built in the wrong place. Not one of you said which is the place they should be built in. Apart from I think my own Firth wanted more houses in own Firth, I think. I think I got an hint from saying, you know in rural areas we need more houses. And I think probably right, we probably could have built a lot of houses. But but nobody has stood up and said, we want more houses. And this is where they should go. Everyone stood up and said, look, this is wrong. We're in the wrong place. Where have your suggestions been about the place they should have been in? That's all I'm asking you. And what is yours? And what are you going to say to people when the developers start coming in? If we turn it down and we have to go back to an inspection again and start the process all again for the next 4 years, every application that comes in goes to appeal and is won. That is what you're facing. People who haven't been to planning committees don't realise what's been happening for years and years. And I just think, never mind teaching the children in school what the planning process is. It's about time we taught members in this chamber what the planning process is. And it's quite clear some haven't got a clue.
Thank you, Councillor Sheard. Councillor Smage, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You've said you're proud of this plan. Well, really? Councillor Pandel, you're really proud of putting so many houses on Bradley Golf Course, really? But how do we know that the administration is actually going to follow the plan such as it is? Councillor Sheard has said that developers will be able to come in, but it's the council itself actually that is causing some of the problems. One site, and I'm going to be parochial here. One site in our ward, the planning inspector has said you should protect some of the green space, reduce the housing numbers that you want, protect the historic buildings, protect some of the green space. So what are the council doing? On a bit of land that's opposite the land that the inspector has said protect some of the green space, the council is selling off some green space for development. And they are eroding the historic curtilage of historic buildings and the integrity of the conservation area. So it's not just developers, it's the council itself. No suitable highway network does not seem to concern you either, nor does it seem to concern you that be putting more traffic through a large estate in Birstall which already uses a cut-through. But air quality, I've not heard anybody talk about air quality problems this evening. Sorry, Councillor Pinnock. In Berkshire, we're still waiting for an action plan to be agreed. Kirklees currently has 9 air quality management action areas. And yet, when we look at where there is an increase in housing, there is some correlation between those air quality management areas and where you are proposing an increase in housing. In Burston, Berkshire, we have a zone being declared around Whitehall Road, Bradford Road area. And where are the most concentrations of new housing going in Berkshire? Whitehall Road, Bradford Road area. In the very vicinity of the air quality issues. And I agree with comments made about the transport links in the area and the impact on additional housing, both in Berkshire and Hunsworth on the A58. Sustainable travel has been mentioned. Presumably that includes public transport. Well, we have a lovely system whereby you can have a new housing development and you can get a metro card and everything, but you're just missing one basic ingredient, a bus. It is recognised that Health and Wellbeing Board panel that health problems that poor air quality can bring. Yet correlation between local plan and strategies do not seem to work for this administration. Mitigation cannot be guaranteed to solve possible health problems and do not address well-being. Where is the joined-up thinking? Not there at all. Similarly with flood risk, you want to put developments on land at Mill Street, Bursell, yet this is prone to flooding, and indeed work has had to be done to ditch some of the land to stop properties being regularly flooded. So what do you want to do? You want to build on it. And the ingress on the green belt, where there is no need, is nothing to be proud of. Officers have said that the plan provides for boosting economic growth, maximising investment and millions of pounds of investment over the life of the plan. So why put a gypsy site next to one of the busiest retail parks in Kirklees, only a few miles away from existing accommodation, and ignoring completely the concerns of businesses? You talk about needing a thriving economy, yet your actions do not follow your words. We've already heard this evening one business give concerns that you've ignored. I've never agreed with this site being in planning, and whilst the inspector's view has mentioned visual impact, there are other possible impacts that need to be considered that quite obviously have not. Those concerns of large businesses that bring jobs and income into Kirklees, but to actual infrastructure problems, for example, electricity pylons too low for habitation underneath. I will therefore be voting against the recommendation.
30 seconds, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Cooper, please.
I'd like to add my thanks and our group's thanks to for the professionalism, skill and dedication for Rich Hollins and his team. We've worked with them throughout, and I add my thanks to those others that have done so. Many years ago, shortly after primordial life fell gasping onto the shores of the virgin earth, Kirklees began the local plan process. Of course, it wasn't known as the local plan then, it was known as the Local Development Framework. Looking back at the documents in the original Latin, you realise how naive we were back in those innocent times. We somehow believed that we had control of our own destiny, that we could decide the numbers of housing that we felt comfortable with and just tell the government in Londinium where we were prepared to allocate for development and no more. I remember well how our now Chief Executive used all her persuasive skills on the bloke from the Planning Inspectorate to accept our humble housing offering. It was to no avail. And under the pretext of failing to consult with neighbouring authorities, to which there was no guidance on how to do so, we were told to go back to the drawing board and start again, and so we began the local plan process. For us as News and Ward councillors, we've had some real successes. The land below Castle Hill at New Lathe Hill has been added to the Greenbelt, protecting the aspect of Huddersfield's most iconic feature. The back gardens of householders at Taylor Hill Road that the council had allocated for development in the draft local plan were dropped. And Highfield Community Orchard, a source of some disagreement between myself and the former council leader Mahbub Khan, was given urban green space status. That was sweet.
We have also been keen to promote development where appropriate, at the News and Mill site, for example. There are still areas where we disagree with development, both in the ward we represent and other parts of Kirklees, and the housing numbers indicated in the plan far exceed what was ever being built in past years. Government has set the rules of the game, and we have to provide housing on sites we wouldn't wish to develop. So I'm sure the Tories will refer to this as Labour's local plan, but really it's Labour's local plan using rules provided for it by the then Lib Dem and Conservative government. This is a plan that does not really address housing need. It will not provide the secure social rented homes so many people need. When I hear people talk about the local plan as a way of addressing homelessness or giving people on low incomes a home, this plan falls short. Developers make money on 3 or 4 bedroom properties for owner occupation. Developers donate millions to the Conservative Party. This plan, and every other plan around the country, is for developers, not necessarily for the people of Kirklees. In this plan, we are pleased that our amendment that ensures that any fracking company would have to demonstrate how it has net zero impact on climate change has been adopted in the plan. Now I know Councillor Donald Firth will say you can't do fracking in Kirklees due to the extent of the Bolden Shale, but there are some places in former coal mining areas where unconventional gas extraction, such as fracking and coal bed methane extraction, are still possible. So we still need a policy to protect ourselves from fracking and other forms of fossil fuel extraction. We should be proud this policy has national significance and sets a useful precedent for other councils and is consistent with our declaration of a climate emergency. So what to do? I'm genuinely conflicted, and because we don't operate a party whip, I'm free to be conflicted. Nevertheless, it is a dilemma. It's just a personal thing. I know you guys don't have that issue. We need a local plan. If we don't have one, then the rapacious developers will have free rein to build where they will. There will be limited protection for all green spaces without a designation. In many ways, this is not our choice. The rules of the game were set in the National Planning Policy Framework, thanks to the coalition government. As a result, many areas which should not be developed on are in the plan. We don't have the ability or freedom to produce a plan that we want, and the Conservatives and Lib Dems would be in exactly the same position as the Labour Party is now if they were running the council. It is important to be honest about that. You have not produced a plan. So what next? Once the plan is adopted, we have the opportunity to introduce supplementary planning guidance to set our own energy efficiency standards in new build properties. It should be where feasible to passive our standards, not simply because it will reduce carbon emissions, but because they will be built to a high quality assured process. So we have reached the end of a 10-year plus epoch with Kirklees local plan. Let us be bold, let us be positive, and let's ensure that homes are built to the very best energy efficiency standard. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Andrew Pinnock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we all know that the plan is sound. It's sound by its own lights. But what we don't know is, not necessarily anyway, are the things that should have been in the plan that would make it perhaps even more sound. I don't know. The other thing that worries me, that's been raised by several people, is the level of engagement with the plan. As Councillor Sheard said, often people only get worked up about an issue when there's a planning application next door. It's been quite disappointing in some ways, the low level of engagement. I mean, for example, in our ward, we notified all residents about the different sites in our ward, but one of a reasonably large size, nobody responded. And when we had a consultation the other day, somebody was getting irate and said, "We didn't know about this." Well, we did tell them. However, various issues come up with this. One is to do with completions. I happened to see the housing delivery test 2018, and Kirklees has provided 76% of what it should have done over the 3 years from 2015-16 to 2017-18, and that equates to 1,166 houses a year. I think the figure in this plan is higher than that, so I'm a bit worried that we might not make it again. Affordable housing, 20%. Yeah. Does that happen in all cases? No, I don't think it does, because developers have found ways of getting out of it. The housing market is broken. We need something to sort it out, but I regret that this plan is not it. Sustainability, including providing houses of different sorts and sizes and different kinds of tenure. I'm not sure that this plan is the way to do it, but certainly if it's not there in the plan, we need some supplementary guidance to ensure that we get the sort of housing mix that we actually want and need in Kirklees. Can I talk about Chain Bar? Because I think that there is an issue here which, dare I say it, the inspector has not grappled with. And I do this with some trepidation. A highly qualified government planning inspector being attacked by an unqualified councillor. But there are 3 large sites, 2 industrial sites and 1 large housing site, very close to Chain Bar. We've got a lot of traffic going round the roundabout which shouldn't be there because it wants to get to Bradford, and a slip road should have been built to enable them to do it. So we have got poor air quality. Yet, is there an air quality management zone round Chain Bar? No, there ain't. I don't know why, and I wonder whether the station that measures these things is actually in the right place. It's fairly high up, so maybe it isn't. I understand that the council and I think Highways England have an agreed position on this, yet it seems to me that only covers Highways England's roads. It doesn't cover our roads and the impact on them, and it also doesn't cover air quality. So I'm not sure that this is fit for purpose, frankly. Can I just mention 1 or 2 other random things? And this will happen over the course of the plan. There is a proposal from the Combined Authority to do something about improving transport in the Spen Valley. How will the plan deal with changing the Spen Valley Greenway from a walkway to a tramway? There's the Calderdale plan, which has got a huge site within only a mile from our boundary, that's going to deliver 1,000 houses. And I am not sure that we've dealt with the SIL yet, the Community Infrastructure Levy.
Sorry, Councillor Pinnock, your time is that we've been so engrossed with listening to you. I
Community
apologise.
Infrastructure Levy, we need to sort that out.
Is that seconded? Right, okay, so we've had a proposer and seconder to move to the vote. Please can we obviously vote to move to the vote? Can we use the consoles, please, for this one? Thank you.
In accordance with council procedures, can we have this as a recorded vote because the screens that appear on the meter currently? But no, we didn't do this. With the guy holding it. Yeah, with the guy.
Can we just have a bit of decorum, please? I certainly hope that wasn't the case. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Well, I appreciate your comments. Council Procedure Rule does say that if someone proposes and it is seconded, we can move to the vote, and so that we are going to move to the vote. Can we just have a bit of hush, please? To vote. So we're going to clear it and ask you to concentrate and vote to the vote. Councillor, we are having a recorded vote, we have said so. Thank you. We will be moving to the vote, but just before, I'm going to give Councillor McBride the right to reply. No. Just one moment. It doesn't help when you're all shouting at the same time. We can't hear what's being said. Just hush, please. Just 1 minute.
Paragraph 3, any member of the council may request a recorded vote to take on any item on an item. Okay. I would now like to make the same request related to the substantive motion and make the point of order that once there is a motion to move to the vote, then that has been passed, then according to procedure rules, that is what should happen. No more debate, no more speaking, no more right to reply. The motion was moved to the vote. It is a totally unacceptable motion, but that is the motion that the Labour group has passed to stifle debate, and we must now vote. Nothing else happens, we must now vote.
Okay. Can I just clarify with members? Council Procedure Rule 17 says that the proposer still has the right to reply.
Councillor McBride, do you wish for the right to reply?
If they want to conclude
Councillor
this
Bolt, sit
procedure,
down.
I assure you I am
Councillor
not
Bolt,
going to
please sit
detain
down.
you long.
Standing Order 24, we are allowed to be heard. We have not had the recorded vote on the motion to move the vote. This is what
Right. Councillor Bolt, it was up on the screen. It wasn't. Sorry, beg your pardon. Just. Right. I'm very sorry, we're going to have to... Can I just get Julie to clarify the position, please? Like I say, if you're all standing up at the same time and shouting and bawling, we're not getting the right advice. Please, proceed. Can we just let Julie Muscroft clarify the position, please?
Okay. Can we have a little bit of push? Please, can we have some push? Okay. Okay. Can we have some push?
Can we please listen to Julie? Thank you.
Okay, can we have some push? In order to have a recorded vote, we need 5 people to ask for it. I think we can conclude that you've done that. Okay. Okay. In order to make it clear, to record it so you see it on the screen and it's recorded in the minutes, we will do it again, we'll vote, but you vote, it will be recorded on the screen and it will be recorded in the votes. Okay? That is the procedure rule. It absolutely is in the procedure rule. Okay? And then in terms of who can speak, on the Council Procedure Rule 1817, on a motion that a question now be put, the Mayor shall put the motion to the vote. You've asked for it to be recorded. We will do it now to record that. Okay? If the motion that the question is now put is voted on and carried, the Mayor will allow the proposer of the original motion, which is Councillor McBride, the right to reply under paragraph 15 before putting the motion under discussion to the vote. So we are now going to proceed to do a recorded vote, which will be on there. It will be recorded in the minutes, and then we will, depending on the outcome of that, the person speaking, Councillor McBride, will have the right to reply before we make a decision on the substantive motion. Right. So open the vote and yes. Right. No, it's not 20 years ago. No, it's changed. It means it goes in minutes.
Please stop shouting over the top of each other. It is not helpful.
The standing orders are as I have just described. They have been changed over 31 years, Councillor Sill.
The legal officer has now spoken. She's clarified the position. We're now going to vote as to move to the vote. Please, can we carry on and move to the vote? As to move to the vote. Has everybody voted? Please check. we need to ask you to vote again. Please, can you just press your buttons again, please, and go to the vote? And just reminding you, this is the vote to go to the vote on the motion.
Gagging order. Gagging order. Starling.
Thank you, members. That vote has been recorded. And I'm now going to continue and ask... Sorry, please sit down. I'm going to continue. Councillor McBride, right to reply. Sorry, Councillor McBride. What's your point of order, Councillor?
Procedural subparagraph 17b. On a point of order, I'm entitled to be heard immediately. Okay. Now, sorry, subparagraph A. On a motion that the question now be put, the Mayor shall put this motion to the vote unless he or she is of the opinion that the matter before the meeting has not been discussed sufficiently. So, can I just be clear, therefore, that you have put this to the meeting because you are satisfied that there has been sufficient debate?
There actually has been a good balance of speakers from all the parties. I've been keeping a check on. I assure you there has.
So you're satisfied that there
has been a fair balance of people from each party speaking.
No. It's a point of order, Madam Mayor. You have to be satisfied under the rules and...
I have just said it. I have said that there's been a fair balance. I have been monitoring which members have been speaking. So I am now going to ask you to sit down, a bit of quiet, and ask Councillor McBride right to reply.
Fair balance is not a test, Madam Mayor. This is not rules. If we're throwing the rules out, then be clear about it. Point of order, Madam Mayor.
For the last time, I am satisfied that this has been sufficiently debated. There's been a fair balance from each party of people speaking. Now, Councillor McBride, please right to reply. This is not helpful to anybody, the way that some members in this chamber are behaving. I am absolutely appalled by some people's behaviour tonight. Now, please, can we show some respect? Decisions have been made. Councillor McBride, right to reply.
I won't detain people long. I think there's a widespread realisation we do need a plan outside the Conservative Party. There's a realisation how important it is. And in the city region, I've been congratulated by my counterparts all over the city region saying, isn't it wonderful that you are at the point of having a plan which is unique in West Yorkshire, is having an up-to-date plan. So elsewhere, this is fully appreciated. People have rightly made the point that we do need the houses of the right kind in the right places. I'd note also the points that Councillor Sheard made. If the inspectors made comments or formed judgments on the officers, that is fine from the point of view of the opposition. If it's in the name of the administration, the same wording, the same concepts are not... they think the contrary. I just do not understand the mentality. I congratulate the officers and indeed the inspector for having drawn the right conclusion. We are proud to put this plan to the Council, and it realises our ambition for growth in Kirklees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McBride. Please can we now vote on the motion as moved by Councillor McBride? That's agreed. It will be recorded. Thank you, members. That is carried. I am now closing this meeting. Thank you.